Well, hi, Aurora. Welcome to the Author Revolution podcast. I'm really excited to bring you on the show today because you and I were speaking just a little bit before we started. We obviously have so much in common, and I cannot wait to share you with my audience. So, before we get too far in, do you want to share a little bit about yourself and who you are, what you do, so that my audience can love you as much as I do?
Absolutely. Well, it's really great to be on the Author Revolution podcast with you. And I just love what you're up to. I think we have a lot of commonalities. I saw all your fantasy books and also that you help authors. And you're like me, you're interested in everything from manifestation to what's the latest AI. So I love that.
Right?
So
And
I
mindset
have
and neuroscience. I mean, that was another good
mindset.
one too.
Exactly. So we have a lot of ground. We'll cover as much as we can. My intention is that people who listen to this podcast will get some tips that they can use right away to turn their words into wealth. I am a serial entrepreneur. I believe that entrepreneurs solve problems at a profit. So if you are solving a problem, or you could solve a problem with your writing or your work or your business, this podcast will help you get a few more tools how to do that. So I've been, I don't know, I think I must be a restless soul. I think I've launched a new business at least every decade of my life, maybe every couple of years. I've done
Love it.
everything from launch a yacht sales business that grew to the largest yacht sales business in Western Canada and a multi-million-dollar business from nothing. I launched my own film and television production company with a partner in England. We raised 5 million pounds and made 8 films. I also launched a coach training company that really, I think, was a pioneer. It was a disruptor. You like
I love it.
disruptors,
Yes, I
uh,
do.
and helped people learn new skills that were apparently, you know, it was a grief coach academy, and at the time, they said you can't coach people through grief. They need therapy, and I'm like, no, grief is a normal and natural reaction to loss, and there can be a step-by-step process to get through it. So I believe I did my small part in changing how people think about grief. And now, well, I have a couple other businesses, but right now I help authors and experts launch as thought leaders, and I write nonfiction and fiction.
I love that. I love that so much. It's like you definitely sound like me. I love, I mean, with the exception of changing your business every so often, I haven't done that. I've mostly just stuck with my author stuff. But I do have to have new programs and do new things all the time. I can't just sit and do one thing and just try to launch the same thing over and over again. For whatever reason, I'm very restless myself, and I love touching on all the things.
But every
So,
book is something new, right? And you've got
right,
everything from Write Your Reality coming out soon. That sounds like a great nonfiction book to Midlife Bond or
right.
Wolf Bite or Wolf Mate.
Yeah, all the
You
things.
got a
Midlife,
theme going on there.
midlife wolf, everything.
I love it. I love it.
It's so fun. Yeah, it's been a fun time to write those books.
Well,
But
my newest
now,
thing,
oh,
go
go ahead.
ahead.
I was just gonna say, but now you're doing the same thing. You're transitioning. You're a serial entrepreneur. You're a nonfiction author. You coach nonfiction authors, but now you're also adding on fiction author into your mix. So can you tell us a little bit about your YA fantasy series that you're launching?
Absolutely. It's called Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse, and it's live on Kickstarter right now. So people can go to magicmysteryandthemultiverse.com, and that's a URL that redirects to the Kickstarter, or will redirect somewhere else useful when the Kickstarter's not live. The first book in this series is already out. It's called Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse. It
Love
won
it.
the Reader's Choice Award, Best Book for Teens, several other awards, and the BBC. I just met with them 2 weeks ago, and they're interested in turning it into a TV series. So
So good.
it's a series of books. I've written 3, but only one has been published. But right now, the second one is being launched exclusively on Kickstarter, and it's called The Secret Multiverse Academy. And I'm not launching a Kickstarter because I haven't written the book. I've written the book. It's
So good.
being professionally edited now, and for those who might be able to see this,
The
if you
cover looks
put a
great
clip,
too.
yeah, I had a
Yeah.
professional cover design. So the Kickstarter is my way of connecting more with my readers and fans or potential fans, and offering a bunch of really cool things that aren't available ever anywhere else ever. So
Right.
they have a chance to name a character or join Zoom calls or get, special edition hardcover books or have their name in the back acknowledged as one of the supporters. And also, my son has done such amazing artwork. So they're going to get some digital artwork that is just beyond what I can offer, on Amazon or normal things. And we're even going to
Right.
make posters.
Oh, that's so great.
So people can check it out and just go to magicmysteryandthemultiverse.com. You don't have to buy anything. You do need to have a Kickstarter account, but I think every author should be on Kickstarter and support other authors and just see what's happening. It's very lively community, and it's really fun to see what
It
different
is.
people are doing. It's very inspiring. And if you should ever want to do a Kickstarter, you should follow and support other Kickstarters and see, become part of that community and see what's happening. Anyway,
Right.
so
I agree.
anybody who likes YA fantasy, that's fun, action packed, it's kind of cozy fantasy. So I'd say it's kind of like Harry Potter meets Doctor Who, because the kids
Love
have an
it.
adventure in the multiverse, or fans of Percy Jackson or Good Omens, or books along that line, like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, will really like Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse. And why
You had me
I
at the
should,
title.
okay, okay. I tested the title with teens, and they're like, "Yep, I had shorter titles, but Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse was definitely the winner." Every time I tried to shorten it,
Yeah.
they're like, "No, we prefer this title." I'm like, "Okay, the readers are always right." But
Yep.
I have to thank COVID, ironically, for the fact of me writing these 3 fantasy books, because when I was 9 years old, I read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and the Narnia series just enchanted me. And I actually remember the moment of reaching up to get the last book in the Narnia series, which is called The Last Battle. And when my fingers touched the spine, I had this thrill of anticipation, because I was, "Oh, one more book." But also I had this tremor of anticipatory grief, because it was the last book in the series. And in that
Right.
moment, I realized that as writers, we are wizards. And with just black dots of ink on white piece of paper, we can transport somebody to another place or time. I'm like, that is so magical. I want to be a wizard like that. So at 9 years old, I declared I'd like to be a wizard like C.S. Lewis.
I
And
love that.
when COVID hit, I'm like, "Hey, Aurora, excuse me, pardon me. I know you've written some movies that got produced, but since then you've been writing nonfiction books and you've been being very practical with your business. But what about that dream? Are you going to write that series or not?" And so I decided to write
I love that. I love that
it.
COVID actually inspired you to do that, because it's so great. There were so many people that went into, oh gosh, almost like a zombie land. Like, I can't do anything but watch cat videos on TikTok anymore. Like, it was so crazy. Where the writers got to work, we were in it. We were like, what's changed? Like, I'm still at my desk.
Exactly. Like, what did Brandon Sanderson wrote 4 novels and did his
Right.
whatever 10
Did his a
million, X
massive
million
Kickstarter.
Kickstarter. Yeah, he's a force to be reckoned with, that's
He
for
really
sure.
is.
But I think it's important to remember that we don't have forever. So
Yeah.
whatever dream is tugging at your heart, you can't put it off forever. You And you don't want to be on your deathbed going, "Oh, I really wanted to write that book," or "I really wanted to be like Carissa and write 29 books."
Write a lot of books all the time, because why not? Serial book writer and course creator.
Yeah, so I think a good question to ask is, if not now, when?
Ah, yeah,
If not
yeah.
now, when? I actually got my MBA in 2015. My older brother, who's very successful businessman, he's like, "Really? What do you need an MBA for? You've launched all these businesses. People come to you for business advice." Well, people are getting business advice from me. I think I should have an MBA. So I got my MBA in 2015 in Italy, of all places. So that
Wow.
was fun. That made it a really unique experience. And we studied neuroscience as well. So that was very cool.
That is so, so cool.
But one of the reasons why I did it is this question: if not now, when?
Yeah.
So I'd been thinking about getting an MBA, toying with it for like a decade. I'm like, come on, do it or don't do it. And in fact, I don't know that I really needed the MBA, because I'd launched so many businesses. I have very practical understanding of business. But now I'm like, okay, I've got the MBA. This is as good as it gets. If you'd like business advice from me, I have the credentials as well as the track record.
Hey, that's so good. I love that. And
But it
I
is
think
a transition. Sorry, go ahead.
I think it's so interesting how we do that. It's like we almost think we need this external validation, even though we have the practical expertise.
Yeah,
We still think that there's this other element that's gonna make us more credible if you go that route, you know?
exactly. It's
Yeah.
human beings who are kind of funny, aren't we? I love Wayne Dyer. He's like, being independent of the good opinion of other people is the biggest breakthrough you can have.
Yes, that is so good. That is so
Actually,
good.
he endorsed my first book, which is called From Heartbreak to Happiness, and it's an intimate diary of healing. And he was my first choice to have an endorsement, and that moment actually changed my life. There's a little
Wow.
story there if you'd
I
like to
would
hear
love to
it.
hear it. Yeah. How did this happen? Oh my
So
gosh.
my husband died when he was 33 and I was 31. And
Oh,
I've been keeping a journal my whole life. And I was looking about 10 years after he died, I was looking in some boxes for some tax records and I stumbled across my old diary. And I just flipped it open, just kind of intending to glance at it. 2 hours later, I'd read the whole thing cover to cover. And it was like, wow, that was a ride. Because when you're living through something traumatic, it's like watching paint dry. It's like, oh, my,
mm,
excruciating. Every minute feels like an hour. But you could read the diary in 2 hours. And so I
yeah.
realized I held in my hand a book that I would have wanted to read. Just like, what is this journey going to be like? And should I just shoot myself now and get this over with? Or
Oh,
is there hope,
hopefully
right?
not.
Anyway, so then I had I tidied it up and polished it, but basically kept it in the diary format and approached Wayne Dyer when he was speaking to like 1,000 people. He's so kind. He waits to greet everybody after the talk, or he did at the time. He's passed on now. And so I gave him my manuscript and then had emails didn't get returned, tried to contact his agent. I went to another event and sat in the front row. He didn't seem to recognize me. And then my then fiance, after Wayne Dyer spoke, he said, "Let's go behind the curtain and follow him." I'm like, that's really not my brand. I'm not that pushy, but my fiance was. So we went behind the curtain. Wayne Dyer was talking to three other people. This was like 6 months after I'd met him the first time. He looked up and he said, "Aurora, you're the woman who lost her husband, aren't you? I loved your book. I will give you that endorsement." I'm like, my whole body
Wow.
went chills. It was like, whoa, he remembered my name and
That is
he
so
did give me
amazing.
a beautiful endorsement. So I think that shows the power of clear intention. He was my
Yeah.
number one choice for an endorsement, and I was gonna get a yes or a no. I was persistent and a little bit outside my comfort zone. It's always good to push yourself outside your comfort
It's
zone.
so interesting that
And
it
I
wasn't
did
on
that
your
happy
timeline
dance.
either, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you kind of trusted and you went for it, even though it was a little terror sighting there and
A
what you
little
weren't quite sure.
terrifying. And the book
Yeah,
by that time had already been printed. So I had to have a sticker. It said
love
what
it.
he said, which is Wayne Dyer said, "I read every page of this beautiful diary. It touched my heart, and I'm sure it will impact yours."
Oh,
Anyway, that was the
that's
beginning.
wonderful.
And I got that endorsement on 5/5/5. So May 5th, 2005. I'm like, that's very interesting. 05/05/05. He mailed me the letter. So whatever your dream is, stick to it. And who knows, maybe there's some value in your old journals.
Yeah, right? Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. That is
So
so
almost
interesting.
20 years later, I've written about 10 books and 30 screenplays, one of which was made into a movie. But
That is
I'm
so
most
amazing.
I'm most excited about the Magic Mystery and the Multiverse series of books because it's so
I,
cool to get notes from kids.
right? What do you think? What are you hoping that the book will actually trigger in young readers? Like, is there a theme or some sort of conversation that you're hoping to pull out of it?
Yeah, what a writerly kind of a question. Yes, you would know. Mwahaha, there is a devious plan.
There is
So
something in there.
exactly. We have a plan to change young minds and make them better. Mwahaha.
Insert evil laugh.
Insert evil laugh,
Or
exactly.
the little. little
Well,
pinky thing.
yeah, I was writing the book during COVID, and not to get into a political discussion, but what I was shocked by at the time was the bullying attitude that the powers that be, that the political forces had. And people who were saying, what about science? And can we have some data on that? Were canceled and
Mm,
shamed, and some of them were fired. And I was just like, wait a minute, they're just asking for science, or they just have a different point of view. And
right.
that just shook me to the core. Because as an author, as a creative person, I think free speech is our most fundamental right. Like, words are the tools we use to think with.
Mm,
If we are very slippery and changing the meaning of words, or only having the majority view allowed to be expressed, we are in danger of going backwards hundreds of years, because the
yeah.
majority is not right. And we want to allow space for new ideas, even if they could be unpopular or heresy at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Copernicus was reviled for suggesting that no, the earth revolves around the sun, right?
Yep.
Galileo had to renounce that idea in order to avoid being burned at the stake. But now it's like, oh yeah, obviously the earth revolves around the sun. But at the time, no. And um, it used to be heresy to translate the Bible, which was in Latin, into English, because the idea that peasants should be able to read the Bible was not the majority view. And it was, caused somebody to be kicked out of Harvard or whatever the university was. And it was not that long ago, really, that women couldn't vote.
Hmm.
It was not the popular view that women should be equal right holders and have an equal say. And slavery used to be the norm. It was
Right.
unpopular to have the idea, what about this slavery thing? I think that's wrong. No, you're wrong, because the powers that be, the wealth, women couldn't vote. And even more recently, gay marriage, it used to be unheard of to even suggest that idea. So these examples show us that the majority can change its mind, and then there becomes a new norm. Anyway, I
Right.
rant because
No, I
I'm
love
really
it.
passionate about this. So the evil queen, like in Narnia, or in the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, there's an evil queen. Well, my evil queen, mwahaha, is a censor. And so censorship is what the bad guys do. So
Okay.
it's about kind of like the thought police, a little bit like George Orwell's 1984
Right.
or Fahrenheit 451. And so I don't tell people what to think about that, but that's what the bad guys do. And you see their consequences are not so good. And the hero or heroine, Anna, she's a young teenager, and she's trying to right those wrongs and uh, and make things better. So that's one of the themes that I'm playing with.
I love that. What a great theme to be exploring too, because like you said, so many people need to look at different perspectives and points of view without feeling as though it's like a physical attack on their own beliefs. Like you can entertain someone else's thought without taking it on, but there's so many
Yes,
people who don't, and they just shut it down like it can't exist.
exactly. I think that it's much wiser, and this relates to neuroscience actually,
I would
to
love to hear it.
to consider the possibility that the other person who has a different viewpoint from you might have something to say of value. You don't have to necessarily agree with them whole hog, but you could try it on. Maybe there's something in there for you. Maybe this person is not coming to make your life miserable. Maybe they're on a divine mission to give you a gift. Who knows? Like, if you have
Right.
that curiosity, things, and you know what? Things are not always as they appear. So, for example, the worst thing that ever happened to me, my 33-year-old husband dying in front of me, that
Oh
was
my
definitely
gosh.
the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Oh,
And in some ways, looked at from a certain viewpoint, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it changed me so profoundly. And
right.
how it changed me from a type A, ambitious, go for it person who is living out the values of the world, make money, blah, 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 to somebody who is more nuanced, a little bit deeper, or hopefully a lot deeper, and has the intention that my life will make a difference.
Right. Right.
All of my books attempt to make a difference. And certainly I'm, with the censorship thing, you can see how passionate I am. And I'm grateful for the person that I have become. I'm not grateful my husband died, obviously. But if I can look at that and go, the worst thing is also, in some ways, the best thing. Every idea has its polar opposite. Every coin has two sides.
Mm.
And it's not possible to live in a world that's only one-sided unless you want to have a two-dimensional world.
Right.
It's just not how things work.
Right. Well, in the like realms of like manifestation, we need that contrast in order to understand more fully ourselves, to know what we want, to get the clarity that we're looking for. It's like without one, you can't have the other, really, because how would you even know what one was if you don't have the other?
Exactly. And I'm torn. There's so much I want to say about this, but how it
Right.
relates to neuroscience, I want to follow through on that, is that you actually grow your brain when you struggle. You don't grow your brain in the comfort zone when you're doing things the way you've always done them, and you're thinking thoughts that you've always thought, and you're saying things that you've always said.
Right.
When you struggle to understand a new idea or learn a new skill, whether it's verbal or physical, you actually lay down new myelin in your brain. And you can do this at any age, even midlife and beyond.
Right.
And this is so important to know, because when people struggle, they often think, oh, I'm doing something wrong. I should back off to the comfort zone. But I want them to lean into that struggle, because when you lay down new myelin, it's like, thoughts that fire together, wire together. You're actually laying down, as it were, you're paving the road. So if you've only thought the thought occasionally, it's like a billy goat trail that it winds through the grass and the dandelions. But as you start to practice that new thought or that new activity, it's like you're paving the road. So eventually it'll be a super highway, like you got 6 lanes going each way. Excuse me. And the difference in speed of the thinking or the physical action, the firing of the neurons goes from 2 miles an hour to 200 miles an hour and faster. So
Wow.
you can up level your own brain by 100-fold by leaning into things that are not in your comfort zone, by doing things that are difficult, including trying to understand somebody's idea who has a different viewpoint or a different life experience than you. So even if you never agree with them, the struggle to understand them with sincerity has value.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it makes total sense because you're putting yourself into almost like, without going completely woo into the quantum physics aspect, you're putting yourself into an open frequency of possibility that you hadn't considered before. And now all of a sudden
Yeah,
that new frequency is able to give you more information that you hadn't even played around with in your brain. And then that leads to more thoughts that are of similar frequency. You know what I mean?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the other point that I wanted to just circle back around to is words are the tools we use to think. So when we have big arguments around what does a word mean, like what does it mean to be a woman? Does that mean you were born without a penis? Or what does it mean? I would invite people to step back from that debate and just decide on whatever definition you want of a word, but then be friggin' consistent with it. And then ask the other person if they're using that same definition when you're arguing. Because if you're arguing with different definitions, it's as if you are actually using different words, using different tools to think with. So one of the things that I find despicable is revising what words mean and then arguing about it. It's just kind of missing the point of thinking. Like I love how Jordan Peterson puts it. He says, we think so that our thoughts can die instead of us. So thinking is super important. Arguing about words is not as important as thinking. but thinking needs the tools of the symbols that words are.
Right.
And
Right.
words only exist, like hot only exists because of cold, white only exists because of black, short only exists because of tall. So if we get into all kinds of arguments saying that person is not short because we find that offensive, but I'm
Right.
sorry, like short only exists because of tall or medium height. Like it's a tool for thinking.
Yeah. It just gives us context. It's for our context
Exactly.
window.
Or exactly. Anyway, so I put some of that passion into Magic Mystery in the Multiverse on Kickstarter now. Go check it
I
out.
I love that.
magicmysteryinthemultiverse.com.
When is the third book coming out? You said that you've got the third book already written as well. Is that going to
I've
be a
already
Kickstarter too?
I've already written the third book. It's going to be a Kickstarter too. I hope that it'll come out very quickly because I don't want people to have to wait very long between book 2 and book 3. And I've already written it. Book 2 is already at the editor. Book 3 has already had the cover designed. So book 3, I just need to stop writing it because I'm never done. I always think of new ideas. What if I added this extra scene? Anyway, so it'll come out this year for sure, but hopefully it'll come out just a few months after book number 2.
That's great. Is there going to be more to the series or just a trilogy?
Definitely a trilogy, and if it goes well and people like it, I'd love to keep writing. These characters are fun, and now all the world building, it took so long to do the world building, so I've got that really clear. I mean, I love
Right.
the character of Anna. So she's this 13-year-old from Los Angeles. She's an aspiring actress, and she's the definition of optimist. So she never imagines what could go wrong. And so she's a bit reckless. But she
Love it.
also has some fun skills like parkour, and she's a great mimic. And she's a natural leader, although she doesn't understand that. But she's also got this big secret that even she is unaware of. So some
Ooh.
family secret because she's got violet eyes and white hair, and her father always makes her wear contact lenses for some reason to cover her violet eyes, although she says they're just like Elizabeth Taylor.
I love that.
And her younger brother, Zachary, is the exact opposite of that. He's immunocompromised. He's recovering from cancer. He's frail. He's like Eeyore. He's a pessimist. He always sees
Oh,
what could go wrong. So he's really fun. And then once they get to the multiverse, they explore several different worlds, but the world that they land on, Telesora, where those nasty sensors are, they're actually invading from another planet.
okay.
And they meet some, just I had so much fun. There's dwarves, there's elves, there's new characters that you've never before seen, there's sort of vampire characters, and she makes instant friends, including with the talking dog, and instant enemies, including
Love
with
that.
the powers
Oh,
that be. So they have some wonderful adventures. And the other theme that I'm exploring is around the value of air. So as a child, I had very severe asthma and I almost died several times. I had to
oh,
be put underneath an oxygen tent.
oh my
So
goodness.
the other thing I wanted people to think about is another thing that we often take for granted is the value of air.
Right.
So the evil people from the future world, they've destroyed their planet. They had a nuclear war and they ruined it. But they think, well, no problem. We're just going to steal all the atmosphere from this more backwards world. So that's their evil plan that Anna has to stop with her new friends.
Oh, so interesting. I love that
And
you genre bend too, that it sounds, even though it's on another planet, it's also got a lot of the fantasy elements tied to it
yeah,
as well. I did
yeah.
that in my first series too, where it was like it tied like for me, the entire time I was writing it, I thought it was a fantasy series. And my best friend was like, Carissa, it's on another planet. Like I was like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. Like didn't even occur to me. It's so funny. Oh gosh, I love those genre bending books and series.
Thank
That's so good.
you. Thank
Yeah,
you. That is kind of fun. Well, and the second one is called the Secret Multiverse Academy. So like Harry Potter, they go to the sort of magic school.
that's so cool. I can't wait to read all of these books. These are going to be amazing. Well, I'll definitely be obviously once, I mean, as of recording this right now, the Kickstarter isn't open, but I will be joining it once it's open.
Awesome. Awesome. Great.
Because that's amazing.
I
Are
think you'll
we
like it.
are we able to get book one in the Kickstarter too if we hadn't gotten it yet?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
then I will wait
So
until everything opens.
yes. So if there's an ebook level, and so basically I bonused the book 1 ebook with the ebook of book 2, or you can get them both as hardcovers, or there's various different
Perfect.
options because I want people although book 2 is standalone, I kind of like them to start with book 1. So I
Right?
made
A
it
little
easy to get.
context again would
Exactly.
make sense. I love that. Okay, I want to transition really quick though into like some of your nonfiction, specifically Turn Words into Wealth, because it discusses generating 7 figures through storytelling, which I know a lot of my audience would be like, what? What are you talking about? This sounds amazing. So how can fiction writers or nonfiction writers apply the principles in your book to their own work?
Great. Thanks for asking. Yeah. Turn Words into Wealth shows 7 different ways to generate 7 figures with a book. And I want to tell you that way number 8 is by selling $1 million worth of books. So,
Go figure.
but the more popular or the easier to achieve 7 different ways, which I detail in the book Turn Words into Wealth, which is available on Amazon. I'll just quickly go through them. And in the book, I give examples of how I've done it, or my clients have done it, or super famous people like Mel Robbins or David Goggins or Jordan Peterson have achieved these kinds of things. I should add probably you to this list because you also have your, 10 fingers, 10 pies. You've got various different things going. Okay, so just really quickly, and if you want to know the details of how to execute this and see the examples more clearly, grab a copy of Turn Words into Wealth. But the number one way to make 7 figures with $1 million message, which is usually expressed in a book, but it could also be a pitch. Like I've worked in Silicon Valley and helped people design pitches, get really clear on their message, and then raise capital for a startup. And everybody I've worked with has raised 7 or 8 figures as a consequence of having their message nailed down. But usually it's also in a book. So number one, attract premium clients at premium prices by being the go-to authority. Number 2, attract investors and launch a startup. Number 3, have your book be made into a movie and take advantage of merchandising. For example, Magic Mystery and the Multiverse series has attracted interest from the BBC. They're talking about a series. Talking about it doesn't mean it's going to be made, but that's a good step in the right direction. But look at Harry Potter, for example. The book was just the beginning. You can buy Harry. I was at the London Drugs yesterday in my neighborhood, and beside the journals, because I was buying a new journal, there was like, oh, buy 3 Harry Potter wands. My gosh. But there's rides, there's Universal Studios, there's all kinds of merchandising. So if you're in the fiction space, look at that. Way number 4 is the free book and an upsell to a marketing funnel. So I'd love to give more details on that one. That is one I've done multiple times in different ways. You can see an example of that if you go to turnwordsintowealth.com or you go to samepagepublishing.com. You can sign in and get a free Thought Leader Launch Starter library, and you'll see how the marketing funnel works. Maybe we'll circle back around and I'll give a bit more details on that. Way number 5 to make 7 figures with your book and message is to become a speaker. Speaking is the highest paid profession. So for example, Hillary Clinton makes $250,000 a talk. Now, I'm not Hillary Clinton, and probably neither are the listeners. And if you are Hillary Clinton listening, great. Glad that you're making so much money. But my clients whose names you wouldn't know, they can make $35,000 a talk. So you don't need to make that many talks for 25 or 35,000 a pop to all of a sudden be making real money. Way number 6 is having a training or certification that comes out of your book. So as I mentioned much earlier, my first book was my diary. I really did not intend to do anything else with that except hopefully give a gift to other people who were grieving and let them know they weren't alone. But that book brought people to me who wanted my support and wanted my help. And I'd meet people for tea or coffee and support them. But then eventually, I started coaching people through grief. And eventually, 2 of my clients said the same thing to me in the same week. They're like, I love my therapist. One said, I've been seeing my therapist for 6 months. The other one said, I've been seeing them for 2 years. But you helped me more in that one session than they have helped me. Can you show me how to coach the way you do? I'm like, okay, I guess that's a message from the universe. So I launched the Grief Coach Academy. And there are many examples of having a training or certification program. For example, Marie Kondo, who wrote, I believe it's called The Joy of Tidying Up. She has a training and certification program so you can learn how to fold clothes the way that she does it. And I believe it's something like $2,000 per person, but then it's an additional $500 a year to maintain your membership. Well, that's very quickly a 7-figure business. And curiously, she also did the movies and merchandising, even though that's a nonfiction book. Her idea was picked up on Netflix, and there were a whole bunch of episodes, and that's kind of amazing because she doesn't even speak English.
Right,
But they had a
right.
translator, right? All
Wow.
right. And then my favorite way number 7 is to create an evergreen bestseller. So an example of that would be the Miracle Morning series of books. Hopefully the Magic Mystery and the Multiverse series of books. I've helped a client, he's writing 9 legal thrillers. So hopefully those series of books. So, but using the Miracle Morning as an example, it's such a simple concept, and it's something that you and I probably both do every day. He's just putting forth the idea, start your day with meditation, with gratitude, with journaling, like start your day right. But this has become a 7-figure or maybe even 8-figure now business, because he's got the Facebook page, he's got the community, he's got the events, he's got, I don't know, dozens of books, the Miracle Morning for teens, the Miracle Morning for young
Right,
couples, the
right.
miracle, fill in the blank. And so if you have, or look at David Goggins. I mean, I listened to a podcast where he said he self-published his books, and he sold 5 million copies.
Mm.
5 million copies. When he first went to New York and met with an agent, the agent said, don't self-publish. You'll be lucky if you sell 5,000 copies. And the only reason he didn't go with a big publisher, he says, is because he didn't want to lose control of his story. I mean, it's his story. He didn't want to have to ask permission from a publisher. So he
Right,
wanted to keep the rights. And then he went on the podcast circuit, as I am doing.
right.
And his idea, his philosophy of hardening your brain and doing it anyway really caught on, and the result is an evergreen bestseller. And he's not several books, and he's not even an author, and he's dyslexic. So he worked with a ghostwriter who is credited, so I guess not a ghostwriter, but I can't at the moment remember the name. But I'd love to give a little more detail on the free book and upsell
Yeah,
example if you'd
yeah, I would love
like,
to.
but I don't know if you want to go into that. Okay, so
Yeah, for sure.
I like the free book and upsell idea. If you have a business idea you want to test, or you just want to create a marketing funnel towards your business. So this book, it's called Marketing Fast Track, the little book that launched a new business. What I did is, after launching several businesses, I got known in the coaching arena as the founder of the Grief Coach Academy. So people knew me as the Grief Coach. But more and more people were asking me, how did I get on TV? How did I write so many books? How did I how did I grow my business? And so I wanted to see if people would be interested in having me as a marketing and messaging mentor instead of as a grief coach, because I get restless. So I like to move on. And the Grief
Right.
Coach Academy is being run, wonderful friend and wonderful coach Audrey White is running it. So if you are interested in the Grief Coach Academy, you can get support from her. But anyway, I choreographed an interview, and I went to the director of coaching for Tony Robbins, who had interviewed me before. And I said, oh, would you like to interview me about marketing? He's like, I would love to interview you about marketing because I know, your background. So he did a 1-hour interview similar to this, not very long, just an hour.
Oh,
I
yeah.
liked the content because I had strategized what questions I wanted him to ask and the content I wanted to share. I just transcribed it, tidied up the typos, and created a PDF. Using that PDF, which hadn't even been born into a book yet, I got 2 television interviews with a TV producer that I'd been on with before. And that immediately put, the wheels in motion. Then later it became, put the wheels in motion and put $15,000 in my bank account because I got a client immediately. So then I'm like, oh, I think this little book is working. I'll publish it as a soft cover book. And then I made it available for free on my website, but I asked people to pay the cost of shipping. So they paid $4.77 shipping. This was important because it actually means the person is a lot more interested if they're just getting a free PDF or a free ebook.
Right.
And then they got a series of videos helping them with their messaging, with their marketing, just adding value and explaining things. And then at the end, they were offered a free business breakthrough call, which I still offer something similar at bookcall.biz. And so the result was, quite shockingly, this is after I finished my MBA, and I'm like, okay, I really want to launch a new business, that it generated, that little book and that marketing funnel generated $250,000 in 90 days.
Wow. That's
So
amazing.
$250,000 in 90 days is $1 million rate of income. And
Right.
that was just a little book based on a 1 hour interview. So if you solve a problem and you add value, and then you have another thing to offer people, that is, it could be the same value that you're attempting to provide in your book, but you're doing it done with you or done for you, or you're doing it, the white glove approach, or you're offering a different kind of delivery mechanism, like an event or one-on-one coaching or videos instead of a book, people will pay more for that.
Right.
So there's 7 different ways. I've given more detail on one of the ways, the free book and the upsell. And you can do this on Amazon. So I often have, like, once a month or once every 90 days, I'll promote one of my books for free. I'll get thousands of readers. Well, of those, a few go, hey, Aurora, I like what you stand for. I like this turn words into wealth idea. Can you help me? And then
Right.
they sign up for a
So
business
good.
breakthrough call, and then they become clients.
That's
But
so
you can do
great.
this too. It's just one example.
Right. Right. Do
Yeah.
you find that your connections that you had also helped, or do you think that it would have done what it needed to do, like even if you, didn't have the production company aspect, that you didn't have maybe connections like Wayne Dyer or Tony Robbins people, like would it have lifted itself up if they were in the same position but without connections? Do you think?
Well, everything matters and everything counts. And as you can see, I'm somewhat shameless self-promotion, because I think people need to know. Like, if I don't tell you that the BBC's interested, how are you going to know that? If I don't
Yeah.
tell you that Magic Mystery and the Multiverse won the Reader's Choice Award, it won the American Fiction Award, it won a Literary Titan Award, you're not going to know that. But
Right.
everybody has connections, and everybody has something positive to say about what they're up to. And if you don't have anything positive to say, well, then get something positive to say. Work on it. Like, it took me a
Yeah.
long time to get Wayne Dyer to endorse
Go
my
hunt
book.
them down. Even behind the curtain.
Even go behind the curtain. But yes, I just went to the Banff Media Festival, and I went there last year, but then I hadn't been there for like a decade or two. And it was so interesting, like, going there last year, they're like, oh, yeah, I remember you. But then going there this year, just 1 year more, they're like, oh, she's like never been out of the film business. But I took a whole hiatus when I was not in the film business. I was publishing books, I was coaching, and people will, if you have a good reputation, people welcome you back. And nice people, good people like to help good people. Like, I want to help you, with launching your book and attracting more people to the author revolution because of who you are. So I challenge the thought, anybody who's listening who might be thinking, oh, well, Aurora could do that, but I can't, or Carissa could do it, but I can't. Start your morning with meditation, and
Yes.
maybe make a
Yes.
list of 3 things that you've done that are great to put yourself in the right mindset. We all focus on what's missing or what's broken or the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, but we need the discipline to also acknowledge the things we did right. Like, okay, real quick, I want to give people homework.
Yeah, I love
When
it.
I
Let's
go
do
to
it.
when I go to sleep at night, I always give gratitude for 3 things that went well during that day. This is a practice that is scientifically proven to enhance your happiness. So I'll simply review the day and go, okay, this went well, or that went well. And then you can deepen that practice by acknowledging who you were, like your part of making that go well. So last night it was so simple. It was like I acknowledged it went well. The day went well because I went for 2 walks in the sunshine,
Love it.
and I acknowledged the part of me that has good habits around physical exercise. Yesterday I had a great podcast, so I acknowledged gratitude for the host and gratitude for me showing up with my pattern. So if you follow that pattern every night, you'll start to notice you're not such a bad person and you have a lot to offer. The other thing I do every night is wondering if you do this. It's a 4-7-8 breath, and it's just very quick
Is that where
practice.
you breathe in slowly for 4, hold for 7, breathe out for 8? Is that the
Exactly.
one? Okay.
And you only have to do it 4 times, and it's
Yeah.
scientifically proven to be very calming to the nervous system. So those are 2 practices people could do. Okay, and then the 90-day
Love that.
challenge, really quick. Here's the
Okay.
90-day challenge, which is in the book Turn Words into Wealth, and also the book Thought Leader Launch. Is you can change your life in 90 days or less if you choose to take on these practices. Practice number 1, write every day. It doesn't have to be long. It could be 5 minutes, but write every day. Make it a habit. Choose a time and a place that you're going to write. Get yourself a nice journal and a nice pen and write every day. You could be just venting. It doesn't really matter what you write, but write every day. Practice number 2, read every day. It could be fiction. It could be nonfiction. It could be the Bible. It could be poetry. Maybe it's going to be Magic Mystery in the Multiverse. I vote for that. Read
Me
every day.
too. Me too.
And then practice number 3 is once a week, just review what you have written and what you've read and see what are you learning about yourself or about your life.
Mm.
So for example, when I keep a journal, and what happens for me is after a little while, like when my husband died, I noticed I was drowning. So lots of times I felt like a victim, and I was begging for help. I was begging God for help. My husband had died. We had business together. I had no husband. I had no business, and I had a little kid and no income. So I had some big problems that I had to solve. And I was venting in my journal and asking God to show me how I could manage, how I could support us both. And months later, all these miracles happened, but I forgot to, because I didn't review, I forgot to notice the connection. And when you notice the connection, you notice that whatever you are putting out, like if you're asking a question, you're asking sincerely for support, I bet you'll get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And the more that you notice this, the faster it comes. And then the other thing that you'll notice, if you're like me, is you're complaining about something, and you keep complaining about it, but you're not doing anything about it. So stop complaining or do something about it.
Right.
Right? So the review also matters. So I predict, if you're willing to take on this, write every day, read every day, and then review it once a month for 90 days, the 90-day challenge, that your life will be transformed. And then I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Right. Oh, it makes total sense to me, because that review process is just, it's so key, because like I do meditation every morning. I read first, actually. So that's my first thing I do in the day is I read, and then I go do my meditation. But when I go through the meditations, I will write down any hits I get from the meditations in my notebook. And so every once in a while, and it's probably less than once a month, it's probably every 2 weeks or something, I'll go through like what was going on, what were the hits, are there any action steps I should be taking from those hits that I haven't yet done. And it's been so fascinating to see that process and the ups and downs that are starting to, like when I first started doing it every single day, it's been about 5 months where I've done it every day. It was kind of like, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a week. And then if I missed it, it was no big deal. But I actually made a decision to do it every single day. And I have been doing it since February. So it's just been interesting to see like those ebbs and flows kind of start getting smaller and smaller, and to see the hits that are coming getting bigger and bigger, and all the different ways that I can show up differently or be different, and move more in the direction of my desired future versus staying in the known or staying in, you know what I mean? It's just fascinating to go back and review it and see how
Have
it's
you
changed.
Have you noticed that the time is shrinking
Mhm.
between you're needing an answer and it coming?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you have
it's
an
been
example you want to share?
well, I don't know if it was super fast, but it was really interesting where this one has just recently happened where with I don't know, I've been looking for more visibility. I've been looking to make bigger connections. I've been being guided to, I guess, get more, I don't know if visible in a bigger, like outside of just Author Revolution. So almost more mainstream, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what that meant, but in February, I was guided to we for my anniversary. We went to Barnes and Noble because that's what we do. Because why not? So
I
I
love it.
got I was my attention was pulled over to Jensen Cheryl's book, You're a Badass, and I was
Mm,
like, okay, well, I have You're a Badass at Making Money. I haven't read the first book. I haven't actually read the second book yet. It's on my TBR. I'm just gonna for some reason I got to get this book, and so I got it, read it right away that week because I felt very much guided, loved her attitude, like the way she is, read the second book then. And I was like, okay, well, I really feel like I need more. I would love to be in her energy. I wonder if she does group coaching. And so I went on her website and that like, so this was, I started reading it probably would have been the last week of, well, I picked it up the 21st. So I probably finished it by March 1st. So sometime in the first week of March, I was looking to see, does she have group coaching? So I look and sure enough, she has this program, You're a Badass in 8 weeks or something, starting on April 8th, which was my brother's birthday. And she had 4 group coaching calls that went along with it. And she usually only just launches the course. And so I was like,
mm.
wow, that was super, super fast. And so I ended up in the course, did the work, went to some of the calls, but in some of my meditations, I realized, oh, the whole reason this was being led to me was that I'm meant to ask her to come on the Author Revolution podcast. I
Mm.
was terror sighted, like much like you were with Wayne Dyer. And I was like, I'm what now? I have to do what? So I did actually get to the point of asking her live on those calls because I was like, are you sure I can't just send her an email? Like my guides are like, nope, you're gonna ask her on a call.
Good
So I
for
did
you.
ask her. And
Uh-huh.
so it was like in the time that passed, like it took me a month to finally get to the point of asking, even though it wasn't on like I was like, okay, it's not on my timeline, fine. Because her coaching calls were 2 weeks apart. And so when I
Right.
went the second time to ask, I was like right at the end of all the people. So I got bumped to the next week. So I had to wait a month in between knowing I have to ask her this question and actually
Oh
doing it.
gosh.
So then I finally did it. I asked the question and it took another month before she finally said yes.
Oh,
So she's coming
yay.
on the show too. But it was very like it's those sort of things that kind of happen. And while,
Yeah.
it's 2 months apart before all this stuff came into being, it still feels fast, if that makes sense.
That was fast. And also you were growing your myelin because you were not in your
Yeah.
comfort zone, but you did it
Oh, definitely
anyway.
not.
And that's how we grow. It's like when we get those little nudges and then we actually do the thing that's
Yeah.
a stretch. And then
Yep.
you get the yes. Like it is like
Right.
the me asking Wayne Dyer. That's
It
great.
is, right? It
Okay,
was
I
just
look
like,
forward to listening to that episode. Good for
I know, I
you.
can't wait. I can't wait. It's gonna be so much fun. She comes, or we're doing the interview in July here, so it'll be July 25th. I get to talk with her and speak about all things
Oh,
being a
that's so
badass.
soon. That's so soon. That is awesome. Well, that's a really good example. And hopefully that inspires everybody to take on the 90-day challenge, write every day, read
Yeah,
every day,
absolutely.
and then review it. But then, do what you did, Clarissa. Actually take action on the things that
Yeah.
are that you feel nudged to do. Exactly
Yeah,
right.
I think that's so key because when you get those inspired hits and people are like, "Hey, go do this thing," in your head, and sometimes like you don't even realize it's not you until you start meditating that this is truly like a I don't know if it's source, God, universe, angels, guides, your higher self, however you want to describe it. It's like there is very, very clearly a separation between you forcing a thought and it coming into your head, like being downloaded to
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I've noticed like sometimes the result is so fast and so unexpected. I remember once, writing something in my journal and I was feeling a bit lost at the time. It was when I was head of development for Canada's largest film and television production company. I just moved to Toronto. My husband had recently died, and my son was, not really enjoying being in a new city with no friends. Um, And so I was like, please help me get my life in order. And 2 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Like I didn't even have to go anywhere. And
Oh my gosh.
somebody from the neighborhood knocked at the door. I don't know, they were wanting to just say about something that was happening. Anyway, I invited the person in. We had a cup of tea. And then they invited my son and I over for dinner. We became friends. And what I thought was this huge problem was just a small problem. I just needed a few or even one friend
Right?
outside of work to have dinner with and, share. And but I was like, really? You brought somebody to the door? That was
Well, awesome,
awesome.
universe. Awesome. Thank you. Because I don't think I could have handled much else at this point.
Oh,
Yeah.
exactly. But,
Oh,
for example, the other things that have happened, it's been kind of amazing. After my husband died, a friend dragged me to a party. I'm like, I don't want to go to a party. He's like, you are moping. You need to get out of the house. So I'm sitting at the bar, really not networking, not being my shiny, let's meet everybody self, but being my introverted self. A person sitting beside me, I don't know who it is. He says, what do you do? I tell him about the screenplay I'm writing. And I get all excited as I'm telling him about the screenplay and I light up, of course. He's like, you should represent the province of British Columbia at the Banff Film Festival. I'm like, who are you? He
yeah.
turned out to be the head of the BC Film Commission.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
so decades ago, that really launched my career in film and television because I said yes. Then the next day the phone rang and it was a producer who's a documentary producer. She said, can I follow you around Banff and film a documentary while you are pitching? I'm like, okay. It's like, I knew I had to say yes, but it was like you with asking Jen and Sarah. I'm like,
Right?
yeah, I don't want to say yes, but I know I have to. So then, so then I had a documentary film crew following me around. Then I had my pitch in front of like 600 movers and shakers from Hollywood and around the world. And I'm
Oh,
like, okay, if this goes horribly, they can, and they missed it because they're not in the room, they can watch it later because it's being filmed. So I've got to make this work. Anyway, I got excited about pitching that screenplay and it went really well. It ended up sparking a bidding war, and my agent was fielding offers on my behalf. And it became a short, like a half-hour documentary that it's called The Big Break. They used it to teach the art of pitching in the Banff Film School for a while.
wow.
And yeah, and then it's like full circle, like that agent, Jennifer Hollier, I met with her like a week ago at the Banff Film Festival. And, she's helping me and my clients place our books as TV series and movies.
How
So it's
incredible is
like
that?
relationships matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well,
again, that
and
was like the universe like forcing me into it or bringing it right to me because I
right. But you
didn't.
also held no resistance to it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have shown up either. You wouldn't have seen it for what it was. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty powerful too, that you were willing to be like, what's going on here? Okay, let me tell you more about this thing. Sure. I didn't want to be here in the first place, but at least you asked a good question. So here you go.
Well, I don't know about no resistance. My neck went into spasm before pitched. I had to see like a massage therapist. So I was not perfect. I was torn. But I think it's an example, your example with Jen, my couple of examples. I hope that inspires the listeners because as long as you are willing, even if you're uncomfortable, magic can happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, goodness. This has been such a great conversation. Aurora, where can my audience go to find out more about you, about everything you do? Because you do so much. I love it. How do they get all the things?
Oh, well, thanks for asking. So go to the Kickstarter. That is happening right now. It's really fun. Even if you just follow and check it out, that would be fun way to connect. The Kickstarter is at magicmysteryandthemultiverse.com. That's one thing I learned about Kickstarter. Get your own URL so that you can make sure it goes somewhere useful. The Kickstarter is just a short window, but it's live right now. And you can get the first and second books in the Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse series of books as an ebook or as hardcover books. And there's all kinds of special things that are not available anywhere else ever. So check out the Kickstarter at magicmysteryandthemultiverse.com live right now. And then if you want to learn more about how to turn your words into wealth, I think the best place to start is go grab a copy of the book, Turn Words into Wealth. It's available on on Amazon. And if you'd like to learn more, you can visit my webpage, which is my name, Aurora Winter, AuroraWinter.com, or my publishing company is called samepagepublishing.com. And if you'd like, you can sign up to get either some fantasy emails and goodies on the fiction side, or you can sign up and get the free Thought Leader Launch Starter Library, and you'll get some books and some videos. And then if you'd like help with your book and your business and launching as a thought leader, you can sign up for a business breakthrough call at bookcall.biz.
So good. So good. Thank you so much for being here and sharing so much of your knowledge. We're definitely going to have you back.
Absolutely. You are awesome. This was a treat.
Well,
Thanks, Carissa.